Sibling rivalry doesn't get more intense than between Hyundai and Kia. Now these Korean brothers and rivals have been at it for over a year in the Indian market in a game of one-upmanship and trying to leapfrog the other. When the Seltos came, it stormed the market, and then Hyundai came with the Creta and snatched back the mid-size SUV crown. And now the Sonet is hoping to leapfrog the Venue. Now we brought these two together because the Venue, it's been our compact SUV champ so far. The Sonet is very similar to the Venue. They share the same platform, they share the same mechanical, they share the same powertrains. In fact, the two we've brought here are powered by the 1-liter turbo-petrol and a DCT 7-speed dual-clutch transmission. So we're going to put these two together and referee a family fight. It's hard to imagine that both these cars come from the same group because they both look so different. And in fact, they stick to the family face of their respective brands. The Venue has Hyundai's familiar cascading grille and split headlamp layout, which gives it good road presence. But from the side and especially the rear, it looks quite ordinary. The Sonet sports Kia's signature tiger nose grille, and the large headlights that flank it house LED DRLs styled to look like a pulse racing, which is what the Sonet's design does to some extent. The sculpted bonnet, shapely wheel arches, upswept C-pillar and tail lights with LEDs designed to mimic a beating heart look great. And the overall stance and shape of the Sonet 2 looks beefier and the more SUV of the two. Now let's see how these two compare from inside. So this turbo-petrol DCT Venue variant doesn't come in the top spec, but you do get a fair amount of kit as well. Of course, all the connected features which Hyundai has been using for quite a while now. You've got the Blue Link. You've now got a steering wheel which has been borrowed from the bigger Creta. A nice little shelf over here, plastic quality pretty good on the top, though lower down not as good. You've got these fabric seats which I quite like, they corset you quite well. Overall a very functional interior. Purists will also like the classical and easy to read analog instruments. The 8-inch touchscreen is smaller than the Sonet's but works quite well. Now Hyundai has always loaded its cars, and even in this SX Plus trim you do get things like auto headlamps, wireless charging, tire pressure monitor and more. But since Hyundai does not offer the DCT variant with the top spec SXO trim, it's an unequal fight with the considerably more expensive but considerably better loaded GTX Plus variant of the Sonet. Now it's here inside the cabin that the Sonet really blows its rivals away. I mean, it just starts with the key, which looks like it belongs to a much more expensive car. Of course, you've got all the features and now things like wireless phone charging, connected tech, which is pretty much standard in Hyundai and Kia cars, that's all there. But the equipment list, there's a huge laundry list of features. Let's have a quick look at that first. You've got side curtain airbags, a super 7-speaker Bose sound system, multiple drive and traction modes, even the all-digital instrument cluster, which though not as easy to read as the Venue's, looks so much more contemporary. The 10.25 touchscreen from the Seltos is super slick with brilliant resolution and packs in a few more features too. And to get you in the mood, you even have mood lighting. But it's when you start looking closer around the cabin that you realize your money goes a long way. Kia hasn't stinted on anything. The quality of materials, the plastics, the seat fabrics over here, absolutely top class. Even the contrast stitching over here, really done to a very fine order. Just look at these vents also, they have a really solid heft to it, and even these finishes around it, really high quality. The screen, the 10.25 infotainment screen, plucked straight out of the Seltos. In fact, the cabin, it just feels like a mini Seltos. good as they are on the inside, compact SUVs are largely owner-driven, so it's from behind the wheel that they need to be appealing to. So let's start with the Sonet. So this top spec GT line variant of the Sonet we are testing comes with the 1 litre 120 horsepower turbo petrol with direct injection. It's mated to a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. It's a powertrain and transmission we are familiar with. It's powered multiple Hyundai models, and of course the Kia Sonet is the first Kia to get this powertrain, so we kind of know what to expect. Now this engine has a nice broad torque band and pulls quite cleanly from low revs. It's good on path throttle and the gearbox is well in sync with the engine. Turbo lag is well contained, performance is good, and a 0 to 100 time of 12.25 seconds is decent, though not exceptional. The gearbox is quick, but quite frankly, this DCT isn't the smoothest, especially at low speeds. But what I do miss are paddle shifters, because quite honestly with this powertrain you want a greater sense of control. You do have drive modes over here. You've got Eco, Normal and Sport. Now this is something the Venue doesn't have. Of course in Sport you can feel the kind of whole powertrain shift to a more aggressive map, so that means it hangs on in gears much longer in the rev band. But quite frankly, if you want more control, it's better to shift to manual and just plus minus away. And to keep you entertained, there are more first-in-class gizmos to play around with. What you also get in the Sonet are different traction modes. You get snow, you'll really have to drive high up into the mountain to use that. You've got mud, easy to find, and sand. Yes, there's lots of that in the desert and on beaches, but quite frankly there's a bit of overkill in a compact SUV. But it just goes to show the amount of features Kia has thrown into this car. Now the Venue doesn't come with different drive modes or traction modes for various terrains, but the powertrain is the same. So how different does it feel in the Venue? This 1 litre turbo and DCT first debuted in the Venue last year, and it's the same spec as the one in the Sonet. Power, torque, gear ratios and even power to weight ratios are similar. In fact, all of the hardware is essentially the same. But there are some minor differences in the calibration and software of both the engine and the gearbox, which changes the driving characteristics a bit. The Venue has a slightly sharper throttle response and is a bit quicker too in the dash to 100Ks. Even in kickdown, it's a nose ahead of the Sonet. But the one big difference is, or the one thing the Venue has that the Sonet doesn't, are these paddle shifters. Now they do help make for a more engaging drive, especially on a twisty road where you want a better sense of control, where you want to be in the gear you choose, especially when you're powering out of a corner. But how good are the dynamics? Are there any differences in ride and handling between these two rivals born from the same platform? Now again, the Venue shares the same platform as the Sonet. Same suspension, same mounting points. So again, dynamically they are quite similar, but yet again there are differences. And those tiny differences are in things like steering calibration and spring and damper ratings, which give slightly different handling characteristics between the two. The Venue is a bit better suited to urban driving with a marginally lighter steering and a more pliant low-speed ride. Overall, the handling is pretty tidy. And now back in the Sonet, it's a similar story. Ride and handling too is pretty good, great body control. In fact, the chassis really complements the power and performance. Lots of grip, turns into corners really nicely. Steering also feels decently weighted. And the steering has a bit more heft than the Venue's, and the suspension feels a touch firmer, which instills more confidence at high speeds.
But to be honest, neither of these cars are the gold standard for ride and handling and are way off the benchmark set by both the EcoSport and the Nexon. For everyday use, both cars are nimble and feel light on their feet, and their compact dimensions make them easy to maneuver and park. But are they too compact to be roomy at the back? Let's start once again with the venue.
Now, most of you buying a compact SUV will be driving it predominantly, but this is an SUV nonetheless, and that means you want some utility, and the back seat is going to be used pretty frequently. Now, it's not the most spacious back seat.
Other compact SUVs have more room, and what also takes away from the sense of space is the high window line and all-black interior. The seat though is nicely cushioned and comfy if you are not too tall. Is it the same story in the Sonet?
Now the Sonet, it has similar wheelbase, similar dimensions and a similar back seat as well to the Venue. And that's not such a great thing because like the Venue, this isn't a very spacious back seat. Again, I've adjusted it to my height, the seat in front, and I'm pretty okay, but then I'm not very tall. In fact, if anything, the seat base is slightly shorter, so under thigh support is not quite as good as in the Venue, but it does make up with, in this variant, you've got a flip down armrest, you've got these nice chunky vents, and you've got the AQI readout as well.
The Sonet wins in terms of luggage space with a capacity of 392 litres to the Venue's 350. But that difference is only on paper, as you'll be able to fit as much luggage in the Venue. As expected, this was a really close fight with both the Venue and Sonet similar in so many ways. Now they aren't the roomiest or most rugged of compact SUVs, but aim to pamper new age urban buyers. In the end, it boils down to the feel-good factor between the two and the price, of course. At Rs 12.9 lakhs, the Sonet is almost $1.5 lakh more expensive than the Venue. But then your money goes a long way. The Sonet looks better, feels more refined, and has a more premium interior. In fact, the Sonet feels like a mini Seltos in a way the Venue isn't quite a mini Creta. And it's this proposition that clinches it for the baby Kia.